Welcome back to the Soul Driven with Steph podcast. I am so excited today. I've been waiting to interview my friend and mentor, Misty Lown.
Well, I'm so happy to be here. And we had to reschedule a couple of times.
Yes,
so
such is life, right?
Tenacity to get us together.
Of course. I'm excited to do this interview kind of at the end of this year, too. You're a big visionary, and I love just talking big vision with you, but it all starts somewhere, right? Mm-hmm. So tell us a little bit of your origin story. What brought you into entrepreneurship and really the dance industry?
So I love a good origin story. And the reason is that I think people can relate a lot where maybe I came from or where you came from, but also those beginnings, because so many entrepreneurs that I speak with, they want to know, how did you build this studio or this national network of studios? And they're looking at something that's really, really big.
Right.
And where they are when they're asking, maybe that gap seems too far, like, I couldn't possibly do that. That seems too big or too complicated. So I like the origin story because it really just levels the playing field, and it allows, somebody who's doing something like I'm doing now to say, but yes, there was a day when I was just a kid in a dance class.
Yes.
My mom enrolled me for dance because I was overcoming a birth defect, a club foot that was surgically corrected, that I had childhood asthma, and doctor said dance would be great. And, for me, it was great until it wasn't great. I had a couple of not great student experiences. And I said, maybe this isn't for me. I'm in elementary school. And my mom, wise as she was, said, we're not going to keep taking you if you're hiding under your bed and not going and giving us fuss about it. But then I realized I really did love dance in middle school. I just maybe didn't like those certain experiences. So I went back and still had to take class with the elementary school kids because that's where my skill level had left me. And I really became motivated to practice and to take every single style and learn as much as I could. And by the time I hit high school, I was absolutely hooked. Dance was what social scientists call a third place. It's that place outside of home and school where you can thrive as a young adult. So dance was that third place for me. And I became a teacher, which became the love of my life. And there's a period of time where I thought, the next obvious step is to be a dancer. I'm going to audition. I'm going to New York. And I had a moment where I was accepted into a professional program. And it was called the Elvin Ailey American Dance Center. If you're in dance, that's just, that's kind of the holy grail, or at least one of the big well-known companies in America. I got accepted into their training program. I knew after watching them perform that the classroom would be my stage. I felt that in my soul. I love that this is a soul podcast. I just felt like it was a message from God himself that the classroom would be my stage. So at a young age, I'm talking 19 or 20, I said, no, I'm going to open a dance school. And I think a lot of people wondered why on earth I would do that. I would stay here when I had the opportunity to go do what looked like a really big thing in New York City, but I've never regretted the decision. 26 years later, here we are in the community. We've had over 10,000 kids come through our local program, and we've had over 100,000 kids experience our national network of schools. And it's something that I couldn't have imagined.
Right.
And that's why I like to tell that Genesis, that origin story, because it really did just start with an idea and just really feeling like I was following what I was called to do.
Yeah.
When it didn't make sense and I had no resources and no business background.
Yes. And following that nudge from God to just go a different direction than maybe what was expected of you or what you intended to do. So what people know as Misty's Dance Unlimited today is 26 years in the making. That's like you said, it did not start out as it is now. So take us through just some of the first few years. What was it like when you started? What were some of the growing pains or the challenges that you had to overcome?
Oh my goodness. I have such clear memories of, we had just launched, and I had a wedding coming up in a year. So this was my first commitment and my first baby, if you want to call it that. I mean, it really, as an entrepreneur, you feel like you're
totally
creating this and bringing it into the world. And I would go at 7 a.m. I would take my breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I would, conduct the business, or what I understood as the business activities, all day long, handwriting ledgers and making phone book ads and sending flyers out to try to attract students. And then at 4 p.m., I had a costume change. I became the main teacher of the school. I taught over half of the classes. And then I would do a costume change and become the janitor. And I would clean the studio. And then 11 or later, I'd go home and I would start again the next day. So those early years, I think they were very valuable because I learned how to do every element of the business. I learned to appreciate every future team member's contribution
Right.
to business at every level
Yeah.
of the business. But I will say that I think I hung on to doing everything myself too long
Sure.
and created some possibly unnecessary growing pains for
Yeah.
myself, because I thought that if I could do it, I should do everything
Right.
myself. I also thought that I should be the best teacher of all of the styles and all of the ages, and that's not actually possible.
Right.
Either.
Yeah.
So I think it took me an unusually long amount of time to make peace with the fact that as an entrepreneur, I not only probably can't, but shouldn't try to be the master of all arenas
Right.
of the business. And that was kind of a long growing pain that I had to overcome.
Yeah, for sure. And how long would you say was that time frame till you decided, okay, I need to start bringing people on. I can't be the only teacher.
So I wish I would have come to that brilliant, idea on my own, but really it was when we started having kids. And we now have 5 kids, but at that time we had just the one, and then 2 and then 3. So imagine you have a couple of kids. They're all under the age of 5. I'm at home during the day now doing those same business activities with kids running around. And then I high five my husband, get to the studio, and I teach every night of the week. And then I realized my daughter was going to go to kindergarten. And I would be gone all night.
Yeah.
She would be gone all day. And I would go from having this very present relationship with my daughter and future kids to having no presence or visibility into their lives. And I woke up one day and that reality hit me, and I thought, oh, I'm going to have to figure this out. I'm going to have to bring more good people in around me. We always had teachers, but we did not have full-time team members at that point. We did not have program directors. We did not have, a lot of outsourced resources like accounting and marketing. So I started a long journey at that point now saying, how can I get this to a place where I can fulfill what are now 2 callings, to build this beautiful studio environment where kids can have this third place and we can have a positive impact on the community. That's the studio calling, but also called to be present in the lives of my children and in my marriage. And the only way to do that was to raise up more support from within the studio and bring more support in from outside. And as an entrepreneur, that all of a sudden that takes you backwards a little bit business-wise, right? So you finally get to the point where you're like, this is working.
Yeah.
And then you have to expand maybe to another studio room or to another location or bring on more people. All of a sudden you're like, wow, I'm doing all the work and there's nothing left for me again. And businesses kind of go through those stair step, right? Like we're growing, but something has to change. And it took all my resources. So you grind it out a little bit and then you recover. And then we've done this so many times. So I'm not afraid of it now. I'm not afraid to reinvest in the business, but that is how the cycle goes.
Yeah. And you oftentimes just learn that from going through it yourself, right? If you don't have anyone to kind of forewarn you, which is why I'm so grateful that you have been that guiding light for me and so many other dance studio owners. So let's kind of shift to that. So you get to a point where you're stable, you have a successful business, you have a team, you're still growing. So you're still in the arena doing the things within the business, but not all the teaching and not all the doing. And then decide, hey, I feel like this is something I can share with other dance studio owners. What kind of inspired you to launch More Than Just Great Dancing?
Well, again, I'll say I wish I could take credit for this idea. I really feel like it was something that came to me, both from people and then also just, God just saying, this is your next step. This is a way you can contribute. So when we got to be about 12 years into running the business, it felt pretty stable at that time. We had a pile of kids at home. I was no longer teaching as much as I was maybe before. Maybe I taught one day a week for a couple of hours. We had administrative support, so it had become very manageable. And I started writing for industry magazines and speaking on the conference tour. And what I realized when I started speaking on the conference tour is that the reaction from the audience told me the way we were running Misty's Dance Unlimited was not a normal way to run it. So when I spoke about how we had been able to hire that help inside the studio, I was able to be present for my kids and their school activities or be home for bedtime or dinner time, how we were able to make a living doing this thing called dance school, how we were able to be a blessing to the community by giving to the community and provide professional jobs. And we were doing it all with the kids at the front of our mind, like what's best for the kids and what's in a positive, healthy experience for kids. And people would call, they would write, they would come to the studio after that. They'd stand in line for 2 hours after I get done speaking to just ask questions about this. And I thought, I think there's probably an opportunity here to help others get here faster than the 10 plus year journey it took me to get there.
Right.
Myself, with all of the bumps and bruises and the pain and the hard lessons, University of Hard Knocks.
Literally.
I have a couple degrees from that
same.
school. So, and then I just really started praying about what would that look like, and knowing that if I moved in that direction, I would even need more support around my studio, because I had gotten myself out of most of the classroom kind of contributions, and I was more contributing to the administrative team. But I knew I couldn't have 2 full-time jobs.
Right.
So it would be another level of equipping then a general manager, a school director, an office manager, which would mean, again, that all of the investment resources back into those resources until over many years' time that could catch up. But, I followed that calling and really became a teacher to business owners. So I felt like I first started teaching kids dance. Then I taught our teachers how to teach, and many of them, to be very clear, came with their own wonderful teaching skills, but just I became a coach of the teachers. Then I became a coach of our admin team. And then I became a coach of other business owners. And for the last 12 years, we've been running a program called More Than Just Great Dancing, and just recently stepped into a new calling. And that's a program called Ensemble Schools. So we just completed a merger of More Than Just Great Dancing and Ensemble. So now I feel like I have an opportunity to influence a group of schools that are all owned and operated by a company. And that's exciting for me, because I had in my More Than Just Great Dancing, that's our studio support program, we get to suggest things. Like, we really suggest that you do things a certain way. Working for a company that owns schools, I can actually make that integration. So it's a fun next step for me to go from, originally I was just reporting to the industry. This is how I do it at Misty's Dance. Then when we had that national program called More Than Just Great Dancing, I was coaching and advising dance school owners. You could do it like this. And now I actually get to say, schools that we own and operate, let's build in these positive things. Right. And that's exciting.
It's like that next level. Well, and I'm so excited for you. That's been a huge goal of yours since day one with More Than Just Great Dancing. So to see that come into fruition is very, very cool. So you've built, and I mean, you have had other businesses over the years. You have investments, you have all these other different kind of layers and levels to what you've referred to as like your portfolio, really, of being an entrepreneur and like wanting to have your hands in multiple things. What advice would you give to someone who has that nudge and call to do a lot of things? Because I think oftentimes we're kind of shut down. Like, you have this one thing, why don't you just do that? When there are really unique gifts that you can share and spread in a lot of different ways. But I have learned from you through even the enterprise program that building a second business, like, you got to do it differently when you have other businesses that you still need to operate and maintain. So any advice to people that feel called to do multiple things and build multiple things?
Yeah, so I think that's a great question. And I've had a lot of great mentors who have given me advice saying, where's the kind of point between you're focusing on something that you're great at and it's working, and there's also wisdom in not having all your eggs in one basket. Right. So, for example, during the pandemic, we lost 80% of our enrollment at Misty's Dance Unlimited. That would have been a devastating event if we only had Misty's Dance Unlimited. I don't know if we would still be here in this way, shape, or form right now, if we would still have all of these jobs, if we would have been able to continue services, losing 80% of our business in a few short months of time, right? And a multi-year climb. We've recovered to about 70%
And that's for almost 4 years
later. And we're going into 4 years later, right?
Which is crazy.
If that had been our only investment, that would be really difficult to manage. So we put the appropriate amount of focus so that everything is taken care of, and there's people there to guide it. It has the appropriate resources. But then we've made other investments, like More Than Just Great Dancing. We have a dance store. We've invested in real estate, so that when something comes up, we're not as vulnerable to changes. And no one could have predicted something like the pandemic. But if you were in a brick and mortar business at that time,
I know,
it was an exceptionally difficult period of time to manage, not only from a revenue standpoint, but, trying to be all things to all people and make space for all people and their experiences of how, they were walking through that time. So I'm glad that 10 years prior, we had made the choice to basically multitask on mission. So if everybody's really down on multitasking, I get it, because, you have 27 tabs open.
Right.
And you go in and out of them all day, you are going to erode some of your effectiveness. But when you open or invest in another business, you're saying on the front side, I am going to split my attention for a certain period of time on purpose. I'm multitasking on a mission, because I think if I can manage both for a period of time, I end up with two things that have value and two things that contribute. So, over the years, we've built and invested in a variety of companies. Misty's Dance Unlimited, that's our legacy company in the community. I'm a proud owner of that for 26 years. And my daughter's become involved with it. We've had long, multi-decade employees who this is they're a vital part of their life, and they're a vital part of our studio life. And then I have other things I've invested in where I really had a 1 to 3 year investment horizon on it, a very, very different outlook, where I said, I'm going to get into this, I'm going to help. And I expect in 2 to 3 years that I will no longer be in
You'll
this.
get your return on your time invested.
And I look at that a little bit like, how some people might look at a stock portfolio, where they might say, well, what portion of your retirement do you want in something really kind of slow and steady,
right?
Like a bond or a T-bill. And, what do you want is something that's a little bit more moderate, and do you want to throw something into 10?
Yeah, right.
That, which could be awesome and
ever changing.
Might lose it all.
Yeah.
So I kind of look at my investment in businesses that way, where my studio is my local commitment and is that long-term legacy. I had some midterm investments that I made, like more than just great dancing. And then I've done some short things where for 1 or 2 years at a time, I come in more like a silent partner.
Sure.
And I help somebody to get their dream going. But the expectation is that's for a very short period of time. And I think that's part of the reason for me why I've been able to stay in entrepreneurship so long, because I like to build. I like to create. I like to contribute. I like to see other entrepreneurs build their thing. So it's been exciting. I look
it keeps
back
it fresh.
Almost 3 decades now. I'm like, oh my goodness.
Well, I think that's anything. Like, if you want to stay passionate about what you're doing, you have to add some sort of fresh perspective or energy into it throughout the years, or you're going to get bored. You're going to get kind of stale. And I think by kind of staying, like you've always said, kind of looking up and out into the future in the long term, and just knowing yourself, right? Like, not everyone is meant to have 10 businesses, or investments, and that's okay. But like, knowing that if that's what you want to.
Yes. But even if you just stay in your one thing, how do you keep it fresh? How do you keep life in it? And let's use an example that everybody understands: fitness. And I know that's your background. So let's say you make a commitment to fitness. Well, if you did the same workout every day for years, it's going to start to feel like an obligation or a grind. You're not going to look forward to it. Then you'll skip once in a while, and then pretty soon it's something you don't even do. So, what you do when you're developing a fitness plan or a meal plan is you try to find ways that you can build breaks and variety and new things to explore.
Cross training, keep it fresh, keep your body healthy, your mind healthy.
Yes. So we need that. So even if it's just not just, but even if your choice is to focus on one business, you need to build that in. I just chose to focus on more than one. And if I can go back to one of those original things that we said, where investing in more than one thing helped during the pandemic from a financial standpoint, because we didn't have all of our eggs in one basket when we lost 80% of our business. But if you focus on one, what can you do that's kind of different inside of that one business?
Yeah, for sure.
Just to kind of reduce your concentration risk is what it's called. It's that eggs in one basket thing. So, if you are, maybe you have a local brick and mortar store and you say, okay, great. Well, how could we also sell online from within our store?
Exactly.
Right. Or if you're a restaurant, okay, how can we have foot traffic and catering or get into birthday parties or graduation parties? So how with your one thing can you reduce some of the concentration risks? The one thing that we know for sure is that we don't know for sure.
Exactly.
What's going to happen.
Right. And one thing you've always taught too is like to go deeper with the people you already have. It costs less to just go deeper with your really awesome VIP loyal clients to serve them on a deeper level. And I think you have always done a really great job, especially in More Than Just Great Dancing, showing that through, the top level membership and the executive board, and like really taking that and running with it. So thinking about that in your own business, it's not always acquiring new clients and offering new things. It's how can I go deeper with the people that I have too.
100%.
Something you mentioned that I absolutely wanted to touch on, because when I first met you 5 years ago, which is kind of crazy how fast those 5 years went, but I was in dire need of a mentor. I still can't believe I was in business for 6 years without really any sort of guidance around me. And that was a huge reason why I decided to take the leap to be in your building, was because I saw that as being invaluable. And you really pulled me right into the community, and I get to, be a coach for it and all of that. But there's just so much value to mentorship. And I know you've had mentors, and you now mentor a lot of people. So when someone is looking for a mentor, what are some of the things that they should look for?
Yeah, that's a great question. And just a shout out to all my mentors over the years. You know who you are, but I absolutely would not be in the place that I'm in today without people who looked at what I was doing or looked at me as a person and said, I see value there. And I would like to help. So I think the first question I would ask is, you kind of like, what kind of help do you need right now? Or what kind of relationship are you looking for? So if you kind of put mentors on a spectrum, you could have a mentor that technically you never meet. It could be an author. So for example, I had considered John Maxwell, who's a great leadership author, my mentor for 15 years before I ever met him. So when I met him, I was like, oh my gosh, you're like my mentor.
You didn't know about
business around the 21 laws of leadership.
Yeah.
So, you can, if you're looking for frameworks, roadmaps, advice, success stories, you can find those, probably in a format now with online courses and podcasts like this, and books where you don't actually have to have proximity to the person or to get value out of that. Then you can move in a little bit, and maybe you have somebody like my first mentor, Deke Swanson, who made an investment to put me in a building. And those early years, he was in the height of his career. I was in the height of startup. We didn't have a lot of contact in those years.
Yeah.
He made the investment. He made sure we were paying our rent. And, it wasn't until years later when my career became more stable and he retired that we started these regular lunch meetings. So there was a period of time where it was like an injection into what I
Here's
needed.
some resources.
Like, here you go. And I know you'll do great. Call me.
Yeah.
And then there's more formal program type mentoring opportunities, like More Than Just Great Dancing and what you became a part of. And I'm a part of a network through Darren Hardy. He's the former publisher of Success Magazine, and that's training oriented. Like I go to school with Darren Hardy. I show up twice a year and we take class, and it's 3 days, and I'm watching seminars, and that's formal instruction. And then I think there's personal relationship, and I think that's where you and I now enjoy a lot of our mentorship, where you can text me and celebrate what's going great, and also say, hey, this is not great, and what would you do? How should I handle this? So I found that really helpful to just kind of say, for what I need right now. And the reality is I have all 4 of those things going right now, but I didn't start that way. There's a whole bunch of kind of external podcast type book mentorship I'm receiving, all the way out to personal relationship type.
And did there come a point where you decided, if I want the level of mentorship that I need, I have to make an investment?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in the early days, really, it's all the time or money that I had was to buy that 21 Laws of Leadership book.
The book.
I don't know anything about this. I'll get a book, right? So, you get the book. And then after that, I had Deke make the investment. I was like, okay, now I've got the studio building, thanks Deke, and I've got a book. So you kind of start working with that. And then, I got probably, I'm going to say 10 years into business and just kind of out of survival mode. And I thought, no, I actually need training. Like I need to be a part of a program, and I also need accountability.
Yeah.
Because I just know that human nature is I would go to these seminars, a summer seminar by myself, and I'd get a notebook or a binder, all this great information. I'd bring it home with the intention to activate
Implement,
everything. And then, it's in the way. So I kind of move it to the sidebar. And then all of a sudden I'm like, it's in a box where good intentions going to die.
Like, I never looked at it again.
I didn't do. So I knew I needed accountability. I knew I needed community.
Yep.
And by that time, honestly, I was just really felt lonely being a leader, because at that point we had employees, we had clients, we were, managing the growth of the business. And I thought, man, I need to get myself in an environment where I have to show up on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And show my work and where I have a community around me, because leadership is lonely. And that's when I became involved in Darren Hardy's program. And really some of the best mentoring and personal relationships that I enjoy today have come through that, and through More Than Just Great Dancing, which was what was created out of that time. Because I was in that program and I thought, oh my goodness, like I could do something like this
for my industry.
Owners, right? Because I can't be the only one who would like a roadmap and who would like community and believes in a mission like dance to have this positive impact on kids and community.
That's cool. So that program was really the launch pad for More Than Just Great Dancing.
It was. And at that time, I look back, his program's super well developed now. I mean, there's there's levels and, courses and live events and online communities, but it really was just this 3-day event.
I love that.
There was just 20 of us. So again, you can look at something about what is so well developed now, but it started with 20 people.
Yeah.
And my studio just started with a couple hundred kids and, just me with my paper ledgers.
Yeah. You start small and then just follow the path and follow those nudges and see where it goes. What would you say if someone's like, okay, I really want to mentor, I'm going to seek out these people, I maybe have someone in mind. What does the mentor want from the mentee to continue to pour into them?
Yes. So I can give you a very straightforward answer from one of my mentors. So one of my mentors, his name is Dave Liniger, and he's the founder of the International Giant Rematch.
Yes.
We were at a Darren Hardy event together.
Okay.
And it was a speaking competition. He got first place. I got second place. And he came up to me afterwards and he said, I played from my experience today. You played from your ambition. He said, I just came in and I didn't know what I was going to speak about. I just kind of read the room and shared what I thought was important. But you came in prepared. You came here with a drive in you to learn and to grow. He said, and that had a positive impact on me. And at that point, he was in his late 60s and he was just coming out of a coma and some serious, you can read about his story, but it's quite a comeback story. And he said, I'd like to be your mentor. The only thing I ask is that you do something with it.
Yes.
And I have worked every day for every one of my mentors to do something with their generosity towards me, whether it was advice or time, or in Deke's case, an actual investment of building a building that I was able to rent until I could purchase it.
Yeah.
And one of the best moments of my career was talking to Deke about, just reminiscing over this 26 years at the studio. And he said, you're the best investment I ever made, kid. And
that's the best.
Oh, gosh.
Tears swelling in your eyes.
I know. Just to know that, in his estimation, I did well with that head start that he gave me.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, so good. We could talk about mentorship forever. But growth mindset is obviously huge for you. I think that's one of the most challenging things when you get to a certain level, though, is like, how do I continue to grow, right? And then when you're teaching other people who are climbing the ladder as well, you can only grow as far as your leader is, right? Or as far as you are. So what do you do right now to continue to grow personally and professionally?
Well, I wish I could give credit. Maybe it's John Maxwell, but there's a phrase called the law of the lid. And the idea is just exactly. Okay, thank you. Like, as I'm assuming that came out of one of my early book mentoring sessions with John. And just the idea for those who are listening is, you're going to hit a lid. Yeah. And you're only going to be able to bring people along as far as you have come, right? Yes. And in a very simple case, as a dance example, I can't teach a dance move I've never done myself.
Exactly.
I wouldn't know how to break it down. I wouldn't know how to create the scaffolds or building blocks or the coaching so they can do it safely or excellently. So you really can't take people where you have not been before. So as we built More Than Just Great Dancing, well, let me back up to the studio. As we built the studio, it became very clear very fast that I was not going to keep up physically with what the kids were able to do. Yeah. So even before, I was thinking there's a potential conflict of me being at the studio all the time and not with this growing family that I had. I was aware that I was not going to be expert at most of the things that we taught. So we started trying to figure out who's better.
Bringing in expert teachers
and hip hop and tap and at contemporary. So that I think was something that I do give myself credit for, recognizing right away. Might have just been sheer embarrassment. I'm like,
it is time.
It's time. But now at More Than Just Great Dancing, when I became a business coach and a business leader, I also realized that if I'm doing my job well, they are going to catch up to me really fast. Which means that I have to keep going and growing. So that really timed well for me to be a part of Darren Hardy's program, because as his program was growing and he was launching new products and training seminars and opportunities, and I was meeting people through that program, I was able to continue to accelerate my own development. And then just a few years ago, I decided, you know what, I'm going for a PhD. So my husband is still like, why are you doing that? You're doing a paper on a Sunday night.
Haven't you done enough?
And, you know, the reality is I don't need to do that, but I think that's part of what makes it so exciting. Is that I'm just really there for the love of learning. I want to know what the best of my field is, which I consider to be leadership at this time. The doctoral degree will be in organizational leadership. And that's a fun place to be, because when I was learning in the early days, it was survival focused. Like, I don't know how to make a spreadsheet. I don't know anything about accounting. So when I was learning, it was just because I had a total skill deficit. And then as I've grown, now I'm learning for the joy of learning, for the value of knowledge, for wanting to inspire others that they can learn new things, or, you know, do hard things,
that you can pick up something totally new too, in that, like, kind of, and not last decade, but like really what you built with More Than Just Great Dancing. It's kind of like a new chapter. So like to be able to do that in a totally new chapter.
And it is bending my brain. I was like, oh my goodness, school, you know, the discipline. There's a discipline for that.
And being an entrepreneur where you can kind of just like, you know, like wing it really a lot of times.
Do you need references?
What? I just built my slides before I started this.
I was like, oh my goodness. So that has been a great, like a sharpener for me professionally as well. Just the level that's expected in there. You can't improvise in a graduate program like that. When absolutely, if they threw me in a class tonight at the studio,
you could improvise.
I could do that, right? You know, if somebody said, hey, we need to fill in on stage at a business seminar, I could improvise that and probably be effective on a one-off basis. But you can't improvise.
So it's a new challenge, really, mentally, and just, you know, to just get yourself back in there. Well, I would love to know, as you kind of grew in your business and your personal development, because we know it's a personal development journey to start a business, you know, you reach a certain level and then you got up level again. So what were maybe some mindsets or old identities that you had to get rid of to kind of go to those higher levels of achievement?
Oh gosh, such a great question. Well, I mentioned one already, the idea that I had to be expert at everything, or that I had to do it all, or that because you should do it all. I think the idea also that if I were to let people in a little bit more on the details of the business, that I would somehow lose control. I think a lot of entrepreneurs, they're afraid to kind of show how things work. But I have become very transparent with my team. You know, this is what it takes to run a school of this size, with a payroll of our size, with the benefits that we offer, with the facility that we support, with the type of quality training that we provide for our teachers, which then we provide for our students. So I've gotten much more confident about that over the years, which I think becomes a burden sharing. It's a capacity to share the burden of running the school, not just the schedule. And I think there's a big difference between, like, I'm not on all the classes and we're sharing the burden of the schedule. Like, we are sharing the burden of the responsibility for the school. We're sharing the burden of the business. Now, on the other hand, when I started doing more of that, we experienced more success in the business, and then we were able to have more of what we wanted, which was, you know, growth opportunities and health insurance. It took me 25 years to be able to afford health insurance. For our team members, but I can go back and see there's a direct correlation between me getting more hands involved in actual business management, not just filling hours on a schedule, and the ability to do that, because it's something that they wanted and needed, and we just created a clear path. And I know that's a simple example, but that was a big mind set and shift for me. I think also just embracing each season that you're in. I'm in a season where I'm not at the studio a lot right now because I have 3 of my 5 kids who are out of school. I mean, out of high school. So I'm traveling to see them at their colleges or in their careers. I want to be very present for the 2 who are still in high school, and to be okay not being as physically present, and to trust, not just with business transparency, but trust the culture. That your values would be represented according to what's important and according to your brand when you're not there. So I think there's kind of that back end piece. Like I can show you a little bit more and I can trust you to help share responsibility for this. And then I can also have confidence that if I'm not here, people are interacting with clients and they're leading classrooms and they're answering questions in the way, in the culture, in the style that we've said that's important. They're kind of a
they fit together.
You know, there's one side and the other side that fit together.
Yeah, I love that. And do you feel like in the early years, would you have any guilt towards not being at the studio?
Yes. Absolutely.
I think every business owner can relate to that on some level.
I was the worst about it. And then when I started saying, no, I'm going to spend more time at home, I was physically home, but mentally I was not there. Mentally, I was at the studio. And this was, you know, really to date myself, this is kind of pre-internet era. So if I wasn't there, I really had no visibility. I couldn't look at security cameras. There wasn't a online computer software where I could see enrollment or anything. So it really was kind of a blind leap of faith. Now that we are so digitally connected, I feel like, I sometimes would like to go back to the day where I could actually
check out
and go and not be there.
Yeah. Or when you're not there, you could disconnect, which I think we can't.
No, it's much. I mean, we can, and we have to do it by choice, but it's very, very difficult. So I find myself in a new way having a hard time disconnecting.
Yeah,
not in, you know, the like, I have no idea what's going on, but in the, I could know what's going on.
Exactly.
Should I or should I not?
So I need to, be able to do that. What is your biggest joy in business and life currently?
Oh my goodness. The biggest joy is seeing either our team members or our clients succeed. Like nothing gives me greater joy than to get a thank you card or an email sharing a win, celebration. And they can be small wins. It can be the little kid who cried for the first 2 months of class and goes into class on her own. And a teacher shoots me an email saying, hey, just want to let you know, I reached out last week. I wasn't sure to do this. Kiddo wouldn't come in, and total victory. She came in, didn't dance, but came in the classroom. Yeah. I can get as much joy out of that as just yesterday. I got an email from a client saying that they had, because of a course we provided through More Than Just Great Dancing, they had gone through a grant making process in their community and got an almost $1 million grant to help shelter the unhoused in their community during winter through the United Way. I can get those 2 messages on the same day, and it's like an equal victory for me, because the commonality is something we did or an environment we created or a training we developed helped that person to make that next important step. Yeah. And that's what keeps me in this game. It's a people development process. It's not a dance recital producing process. It's who we become. The process is the stuff that lasts. Yeah. Right? Like a dance lasts 3 minutes. Yeah. Exactly. You know, a business seminar lasts 3 days. But what do we get of long-term or even eternal value through our relationships and through how we interact with people? That's what keeps me. Yeah.
And that's like that legacy piece that I think you have really hammered home with anyone that you are in community or relationship with, is wanting to be a part of the journey for the lifelong, eternity of it, like you were saying,
because it's too much work. And I say this a little bit tongue in cheek, but it is true. If we spend 32 weeks or 34 weeks, however long our dance season is now, and the only outcome is a 3-minute dance, that doesn't math out, you know. But if through that 34 weeks we develop friendships and perseverance, and we learn to get up when we fall down and to finish what we start, and we build confidence, and all of that goes on display for 3 minutes, and it sticks with them for a lifetime, we couldn't have made a better investment. Same thing for coaching at business.
Yeah, I was just going to say,
if you're just coming to my 3-day seminar, you know, and that's all you get out of it is your certificate that you can post about. I just went to this seminar. It's not really of lasting value, but if you go back and you're able to write a grant or provide more employment or amplify your programming or up-level the excellence with which you operate.
Yeah. And I think
amazing.
to even just be a part of people's journey, like you've supported so many people, even selling their studio business or moving on to the next chapter of their life, really, as a human, and to continue to support them too, is really cool.
If I could say something to that, I think going back to your mindset comment, I think a lot of people, entrepreneurs or not, we fear making change in our lives because we fear how other people will respond to it. Right? And healthy things grow. It's all around us in God's creation. So if something is healthy, it's growing and it's changing. So, if somebody were to say to somebody like, wow, you've changed, why do we think that's necessarily a negative comment?
Right.
Now, sometimes it
can
could be like,
but
I know this nice friend in high school, and wow, I saw them again, and they had really changed. And that you're like saying that in a negative sense, but overall, I would hope that somebody would say of me, "Wow, she's really changed."
Yeah,
because I don't want to be.
You don't want to be
the novice, scared 20-year-old who didn't know what I was doing and was navigating everything on a shoestring and just got in tears. I mean, it was just a really difficult, gritty time of life. I hope I've changed.
Same.
I hope I've become more stable, more consistent, more patient, more visionary, a better steward, more willing to take risk and invest. Like, I hope I have changed.
And I think just for me personally, that was one of my biggest fears of like leaving my studio was, am I ever going to see you again? Or is it worth it for you to even keep me in your community, or what all those like fears that run through our mind? And I still remember being in this office and you giving me a hug and being like, in a year, you will tell me this is the best decision you've ever made.
And here we are. And here we are. What did you say today?
And I said, this is the best decision I've ever made. And I'm just so grateful that now I feel like I even have a deeper relationship with you because life has changed so much. And now I get to pursue the things that I'm really passionate about. And I think you are a teacher through and through, just like I have always been too. And so it's been cool to like just stay connected in that way. So,
and that's an interesting thing maybe for your listeners to think about. So I absolutely identify as a teacher. So I think a lot of people would characterize me as an entrepreneur or as a business owner. And I use that language a lot because it's the topic that I teach.
Yes, exactly.
But my first identity will always be as a teacher. Like I said earlier, I used to teach kids, and then I helped to coach the teachers, and then the admin team, and then business owners. But that through line in everything that I've done is just trying to equip, inspire, to make somebody's path a little bit easier, to help somebody with their wayfinding, or to articulate the steps they need to take to get towards their goal. It's teaching for sure, and I think that's why I have such a heart in the community. If we're looking at our year-end giving now and trying to figure out how we can, best give back in our community. I'm always drawn towards those who work in teaching capacities or with our youth, because I just think small business and schools, small business and youth programs, our youth serving agencies, they're the fabric of our community.
Yeah.
That's why I'm so passionate about the Boys and Girls Club, because I started teaching at the Boys and Girls Club years ago. And I just know what a positive impact that it can have on a kid to have caring adults in an after school setting. I look back to high school and middle school. Some of the biggest influences during that time period were teachers. I look at my kids now and they're looking up to their coaches and their youth pastors. So I love that idea that through teaching we can transform.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. What are you most proud of about yourself?
Oh my goodness. I think I'm most proud of the fact that I just kept getting up. So I look back recently as Facebook shows, pictures from the past, good or bad, but it showed me a picture where I was at a seminar and I was learning, but as I looked at the date, I thought, oh my gosh, just a week prior, I had overcome one of the biggest challenges of my life. And I looked at that picture, I'm like, I'm really proud of myself on that date, because I could have really just stayed home. That could have been a day where I hid from the world, because the week prior had been so difficult, so much so where years later I look back, I'm like,
you remember.
I know what that day means. And I think that in big and small ways, whether it's, somebody just saying, I'm upset your product wasn't delivered or what I thought, somebody who made it, that feels
like the worst
the
thing,
worst thing ever,
someone could
but
say.
to say like, okay, this is what's in front of me. I'm going to handle it. I'm going to fix it. I'll apologize. Or explain. Sometimes the customer's not always right. Sometimes you just have to explain.
Yes.
And then go on. And now I look back, I'm like, those are small things or like really big things where you look back and you say, wow, I'm really proud of myself for putting myself back out there and trying again or continuing to learn and grow. So I think that's something that's very, very recent. I think if I want to go more global, just that through it all, I've always attempted to prioritize family and faith. And I think kind of along the side of like, you can grow and change over time. I've always kept those things at the core. So as I've had, bigger and more, like exciting opportunities and experiences, I've never forgotten where I came from. I've never forgotten, those core values of family and faith. So those are the two things. I think that rootedness and that resilience. Those are two things I'd like to be known for, that for as much as I grew, I remained rooted. And for as many challenges that I faced, I remained resilient.
I love that. Rooted and resilient.
Yes. I might develop a business. I might get a URL after this.
That could be a book. I love it.
Thinking now.
My last and final question is, what drives your soul today? What do you get up for each morning?
I get up to make a difference. So, at this point, I don't need to work as hard as I'm working today, but it gives me energy to know that the programs that we develop, that the people that we coach, the classes we provide make a tangible difference. So I have a box just on the other side of the desk. We're in my office right now. It's kind of a Rubbermaid tote. And I collect cards. Yeah. So whether it's an email that I can print out and put there or a handwritten card, and I have this vision of retirement. I don't know if this is real or not, but I'm just because I've had this vision for 20 plus years that I'm retired, which probably will never happen, but this is my vision. I'm on a beach and it's sunshine. It's January, of course, because in Wisconsin, it's not my reality in January. And I'm, enjoying a smoothie, and I have this like buckets of Rubbermaids, and I'm just sitting there, and I'm reading the cards, just knowing that it made a difference. So to me, knowing that I still can contribute and make a difference, I don't actually think I'll ever retire. My grandpa failed.
I've always said that too.
My mom jokes that my grandpa failed at retirement like 8 times. He would retire and then
find something
else to do. So it's probably going to be me, but I would like to consider my future more about reflection than retirement.
I like that. Yeah.
And I want to be able to look back and reflect, on a contribution, reflect on, that overall we made more right choices than wrong choices. If we messed up, we owned up, we tried to figure it out. We were always trying, to do the right thing or make things right, to pay it forward, to contribute. I would like that to be something that I can reflect on. Yeah. With confidence. And those letters are a piece of that.
I love that. I save those too.
Keep teaching your kids to write those letters.
Yeah. Well, and reading through all of those is going to transport you back to all of those phases of your journey, other people's journey that you got to be a part of. And what a proud thing to be a part of, and that legacy, that impact that can continue on. And that sounds like fantastic retirement of reflection to me. So I love that. Well, thank you so much for your time today. And always, where can we find you if we want to stay connected with you?
Yeah, would love to connect. I'm online. So at Misty Lown, pretty much anywhere there's a place to follow people. And then of course through mistysdance.com or More Than Just Great Dancing or ensembleschools.com.
Awesome. Well, until next time, keep following what drives your soul.